Imagine standing in the middle of a battlefield. On one side, your cousins. On the other, your grandfather, your teacher, your closest friends. Thousands of soldiers are waiting for your signal. And in that exact moment, bow in hand, chariot wheels sunk in the dust, you drop your weapon and refuse to fight. That's not the opening of a war movie. That's the opening of one of the most influential philosophical texts in human history. Quoted by Einstein, Gandhi, Oppenheimer, and Emerson, this is a conversation between a warrior having a breakdown and a charioteer who happens to be God. 18 chapters, one continuous dialogue, and by the end it answers questions we're still asking today. Why do good people suffer? What happens when we die? And how do you act in a world where every choice seems to cause harm? This is the Bhagavad Gita, as it is, and I'm going to walk you through every single chapter in order so you actually understand how this argument builds. Let's get into it. Before chapter 1 even starts, here's the backstory. Two branches of one royal family, the Pandavas and the Kauravas, are cousins fighting over the same throne. The Kauravas, led by the jealous Duryodhana, have already tried to cheat, humiliate, and kill the Pandavas more than once. Peace talks have failed. War is the only option left. On the Pandava side stands Arjuna, the greatest archer alive, and his charioteer, who is actually Krishna, the Supreme, in human form. The entire book is a single conversation, spoken on that battlefield, right before the first arrow is fired. Chapter 1. Observing the armies on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Arjuna asks Krishna to drive his chariot into the middle of the battlefield so he can see exactly who he's about to fight. And what he sees breaks him. Not strangers, grandfathers, teachers, uncles, cousins, friends. His hand starts shaking, his mouth goes dry, his bow slips from his grip. He tells Krishna that even if it means losing the kingdom, he refuses to kill his own relatives for a throne. Arjuna sits down in his chariot, overwhelmed with grief, and puts his weapons aside. This chapter is pure crisis. No answers yet, just one honest man completely frozen by an impossible decision. It sets up the entire rest of the book as Krishna's response. Chapter 2. Contents of the Gita summarized. This is the most important chapter in the whole book because Krishna previews almost every idea he's going to expand on later. His first move is a total reframe. The body is temporary, like a change of clothes, but the self wearing it, the soul, is never born and never dies, untouched by weapons, fire, or water. So the grief Arjuna feels over people dying is, in a sense, misplaced because the real person was never destined to end. Then Krishna introduces the idea that will anchor the entire text. You have the right to perform your duty, but never the right to the fruits of your actions. Do the work. Release the anxious grip on outcomes. He also makes a promise that becomes hugely important later, that even a small amount of genuine effort on this path protects a person from the deepest kind of fear. By the end of the chapter, Krishna describes the qualities of someone who has achieved steady wisdom, unshaken by pleasure or pain, desire or loss. Chapter 2 is essentially the whole Gita in miniature. Chapter 3, Karma Yoga. If detachment sounds like an excuse to withdraw from life, Krishna shuts that down immediately. Nobody can actually stop acting. Even sitting still and doing nothing is a kind of action, and often a lazier, more selfish one. The real skill isn't avoiding work. It's acting without selfish craving, pulling the strings behind it. Krishna even uses himself as the example. As the Supreme, he has no personal need to do anything, no unfinished business to complete. And yet he stays constantly engaged in maintaining the universe, purely because it's his role. That's the model he's offering Arjuna. Work like it matters, without treating the results as a personal trophy. The chapter ends with a warning about desire and anger as the real enemies to conquer. Not external armies, but the cravings inside the mind. Chapter 4. Transcendental Knowledge. Here Krishna reveals something Arjuna wasn't expecting. This teaching isn't new. He says he originally passed this same knowledge down through an ancient lineage long before this moment, and that it gradually got lost over time. So this conversation is really a restoration, not an invention. Arjuna's confused. Krishna is younger than him, so how could he have taught it in ancient times? Krishna's answer introduces one of the book's most famous ideas, that he takes birth, age after age, whenever moral order collapses badly enough, to restore balance and protect the sincere. Unlike ordinary beings, he says his own births and actions are transcendental, not binding. The chapter closes with a case for knowledge as the great purifier. The idea that genuine understanding can burn away the reactions of even a difficult past, the way fire reduces wood to ash. Chapter 5, Karma Yoga, Action in Krishna Consciousness. Arjuna asks a direct question here. Which is better, renouncing action entirely or working selflessly? Krishna's answer is that both can lead to the same destination, but selfless action is easier and more practical for most people, since giving up all activity is nearly impossible and often just becomes another form of self-deception. A truly wise person, Krishna says, doesn't actually see themselves as the ultimate doer of anything. They perform their role the way an eye sees or an ear hears, functioning naturally without an inflated sense of personal ownership over the outcome. The chapter ends by describing genuine inner peace as something available right now, not a reward waiting in some other lifetime, for anyone who stopped being pulled around by craving and aversion. Chapter 6, Dhyana Yoga. This is the most practical, almost technical chapter so far. Krishna describes an actual meditation method, a steady, disciplined seat, controlled breath, eyes and attention drawn inward, the mind trained to stop chasing every stray thought. He compares an unsteady mind to the wind, nearly impossible to fully catch, but not impossible to gradually tame through consistent practice. Arjuna raises a very human worry. What happens to someone who sincerely attempts this path and doesn't finish it? Does all that effort just disappear? Krishna's answer is reassuring rather than punishing. Spiritual effort is never wasted. A person picks back up from wherever they left off, carried forward by their own prior sincerity, rather than starting over from nothing. It's one of the most comforting promises in the entire book. Chapter 7, Knowledge of the Absolute. The tone shifts here from ethics to theology. Krishna starts describing himself as the underlying source behind everything impressive in nature. The taste in water, the light in the sun, the fragrance of the earth, the intelligence in the intelligent. It's a sweeping claim that every remarkable force you've ever admired is really a fragment of one single origin point. He also categorizes the kinds of people who turn toward him: the distressed, those seeking wealth, the curious, and those seeking wisdom, and says all four are welcome, though the wise, who seek understanding for its own sake, are closest to him. The chapter ends with a warning that people whose minds are captured by illusion and material desire struggle to recognize this deeper reality, even when it's right in front of them. Chapter 8, Attaining the Supreme. Krishna finally addresses the question Arjuna hasn't said out loud. What actually happens at death? His answer is that whatever a person is deeply absorbed in at their final moment tends to shape where their consciousness goes next, which is really a statement about the whole of life, since your habitual focus, moment to moment, quietly determines what fills your mind at the very end. He describes the practice of remembering the divine name at the moment of death, and the sacred syllable Om as a kind of anchor for that final concentration. The chapter also lays out a cosmic detail. Certain paths after death lead to eventual return to the material world, while others lead beyond it entirely, never to come back. Even the lifespan of the universe itself is described in almost incomprehensible cycles of cosmic day and night, a scale meant to make Arjuna's immediate battlefield anxiety feel small by comparison. Chapter 9, The Most Confidential Knowledge. Krishna calls this section the most confidential teaching in the whole conversation because it moves from philosophy into relationship. He describes pervading all of existence while somehow remaining personally untouched by it. The way space contains everything inside it without being altered by any of it. Then comes one of the most quietly radical lines in the whole book, that sincere devotion matters more than the scale of the offering. Even something as small as a leaf, a flower, or a little water, given with love, is received completely. And he makes an explicit, almost startling promise that anyone, regardless of birth or past conduct, who turns toward him sincerely will never ultimately be lost. In a strictly hierarchical ancient society, that's not a small aside. It's arguably the most democratizing idea in the entire text. Chapter 10. The Opulence of the Absolute. This chapter is essentially Krishna listing his own greatest hits. Among warriors, he says, I am this one. Among rivers, I am that one. Among letters, I am the first one. Among seasons, I am spring. It could read as boasting until you realize the actual point. That everything remarkable you've ever admired in the world, in any category, is being framed as a fragment of one underlying source, not a separate accident. By the end of the chapter, Arjuna is so moved by the scale of what he's hearing that he asks a bigger question. Can he actually see this cosmic form, not just hear about it? That question is the setup for the next chapter, the emotional peak of the entire book. Chapter 11. The Universal Form. Krishna grants Arjuna's request, giving him a temporary, divine vision to perceive what ordinary eyes can't. What Arjuna sees is overwhelming. Countless faces, countless arms, entire galaxies and timelines moving simultaneously within a single form, armies and planets and the past and future all visible at once. It's simultaneously the most beautiful and most terrifying image in the book. Krishna's mouths are even described devouring warriors from both armies, a stark reminder that time and death are also part of this totality, not separate from it. Arjuna, the greatest warrior alive, starts trembling and begs Krishna to return to his gentle, familiar human form, because the infinite turns out to be genuinely hard for a human mind to hold, no matter how brave that human is. This chapter is proof delivered directly, rather than argued philosophically, and it's the turning point where Arjuna's intellectual doubt starts giving way to awe. Chapter 12. Devotional Service. After that overwhelming vision, Arjuna asks a very human question. Is it better to love an abstract, formless absolute, or a personal being you can actually have a relationship with? Krishna's honest answer is that the personal path is generally easier for most people. Abstract philosophy demands a level of mental discipline that's hard to sustain, while a direct, loving relationship tends to hold up better over a lifetime, even though both are described as valid routes to the same destination. The chapter closes with a checklist of qualities Krishna says are especially dear to him. Someone free of envy, friendly to all beings, unshaken by praise or blame, content, self-controlled, and equally balanced in comfort and hardship. It reads less like a rulebook and more like a character reference. Proof that this path is measured by how a person treats others, not by ritual alone. Chapter 13. Nature, the Enjoyer, and Consciousness. Krishna draws a sharp distinction that runs through most Indian philosophy. The difference between the field, the body, the mind, and the material world a person moves through, and the knower of the field, the conscious awareness quietly observing all of it. Confusing the two, he says, is the root of most human suffering. A person isn't the vehicle, they're the one driving it. Yet most people fuse their entire identity with their body, job title, and possessions instead. Krishna also describes the Supreme as a kind of universal knower present in every field simultaneously. The light that makes perception possible in every direction, everywhere, all at once. Real knowledge, he says, isn't collecting more facts, it's finally seeing this distinction clearly, that you are the observer, not the thing being observed. Chapter 14. The Three Modes of Material Nature. Here Krishna introduces one of the book's most practical frameworks. Three fundamental qualities, or gunas, that color absolutely everything in nature. Goodness brings clarity, contentment, and light, but can quietly attach a person to their own sense of knowledge or virtue. Passion brings restless craving, ambition, and drive, but also anxiety and burnout. Ignorance brings confusion, laziness, and delusion. Every mood, every food preference, every kind of work leans toward one of these three, and most people cycle between all of them depending on the day. The chapter's real punchline is that real freedom isn't about permanently forcing yourself into goodness. It's about recognizing that your deepest self isn't fully any of the three, and learning to watch all of them operate the way you'd watch weather pass through a sky that never actually gets wet. Chapter 15. The Yoga of the Supreme Person. Krishna opens with a striking image. existence pictured as an upside-down tree, its roots stretching upward toward the absolute, and its branches reaching down into the material world, its leaves representing the Vedic hymns. The instruction is to cut this tree down with the sharp weapon of detachment, and then search out the root it grew from. He then describes a supreme person beyond both the temporary material world and the individual soul struggling within it, the source that sustains both. Understanding this third position, Krishna says, is what actually resolves the tension between spirit and matter that's been building since chapter 13, and he calls this understanding among the most confidential knowledge in the whole text. Chapter 16, the divine and demoniac natures. Krishna spends this chapter contrasting two character types. One is honest, disciplined, compassionate, fearless, and self-controlled. The other is driven by ego, anger, greed, hypocrisy, and a belief that pleasure and self-interest are the entire point of existence. Krishna describes this second type as trapped in an endless cycle of desire, never satisfied no matter how much they acquire. This isn't really good guys versus bad guys in some supernatural sense. It's a character sketch, and most people will recognize traits from both lists inside themselves at different moments, which is arguably the chapter's real usefulness. It works better as a mirror than as a way of categorizing other people. Krishna also names desire, anger, and greed as a kind of triple gate to self-destruction, echoing the warning he first raised back in chapter 3. Chapter 17, the divisions of faith. Arjuna asks about people who worship sincerely but without following scriptural guidelines. Where does that kind of faith fit? Krishna's answer is that faith itself isn't uniform. It's shaped by whichever of the three natural qualities currently dominates a person's mind. He walks through how this shows up in daily life. Even food preferences split along these lines, with goodness favoring foods that promote health and calm, passion favoring foods that are excessively bitter, salty, or stimulating, and ignorance favoring food that's stale or impure. The same three-way split applies to charity. Giving grudgingly, at the wrong time, to the wrong recipient, is treated very differently from giving freely simply because it's the right thing to do, with no expectation of return. The underlying message is that changing your daily habits is really how a person changes their faith over time. It's not a fixed trait, it's a direction you're constantly nudging yourself toward or away from. Chapter 18. Conclusion. The perfection of renunciation. This final chapter is the payoff for everything that came before. Krishna clarifies a distinction Arjuna's been confused about. True renunciation was never about refusing to act. It's about acting without selfish attachment to the results. The same idea introduced back in Chapter 2, now fully unpacked. He breaks any action down into 5 components: the doer, the tools used, the effort involved, the situation, and something beyond individual control, to show Arjuna that outcomes were never entirely his to command in the first place, which is oddly freeing rather than discouraging. Krishna also returns one final time to the 3 gunas, showing how they shape a person's understanding, their determination, and even the kind of happiness they chase. Pleasure that starts bitter and matures sweet is the mark of goodness, while pleasure that starts sweet and turns to poison is the mark of passion. Then, after this long, sweeping conversation, Krishna does something notable. He tells Arjuna to deliberate on everything he's heard and then decide for himself. This was never meant to be blind obedience. It's an invitation to genuine understanding. And finally comes the line the entire book has been building toward. Abandon every version of duty you've been anxiously clutching and turn toward Krishna alone, completely, without fear. It lands less like a command and more like an exhale. Arjuna's paralysis lifts. His illusion clears. He picks up his bow, not because he's been ordered to, but because he finally understands why he's fighting. The book closes with Sanjaya, the narrator relaying this entire conversation to the blind king Dhritarashtra, declaring that wherever Krishna and Arjuna stand together, victory is assured. Strip away the battlefield, and the Bhagavad Gita is really a manual for one universal problem. How do you act decisively in a confusing, morally messy world without being crushed by anxiety over the outcome? Arjuna's crisis, at its core, was never really about war. It was about the fear of acting wrong in an impossible situation, a fear literally everyone carries. Whether the battlefield is a boardroom, a hospital room, or a difficult conversation you've been avoiding. That's probably why an ancient conversation on a battlefield still lands today. Because the battlefield was never really the point. The mind was. That's the Bhagavad Gita, chapter by chapter. From a warrior's breakdown to a battlefield revelation to one of the most quoted lines in philosophy. If this helped the structure finally click, hit subscribe. Every week this channel turns the world's most important books into an actual understanding you can use. Let me know in the comments which chapter hit you hardest. See you in the next one.